So Maurice presenting on the anatomy of children's fandom.
Thank you very much. I feel pressure enough because I'm following someone who used the word eudaimonia in the presentation. God, I don't even know what that means. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. So my name is Maurice Wheeler with Kids Industries. It is now the second time I've said that to a room of people. We merged together the two businesses of the Little Big Partnership and Kids Industries officially on Tuesday. So we are now a combined strategy, research, insight and creative development team, a kind of complete integrated agency. But what I'm here to talk to you today is I'm here to talk about fans and fandom and the anatomy of a fan and the process that we go through to help our clients and to help us understand a little bit more about their fan base and what they should and could be doing with it. So over the last year, we've done a lot of work looking at fandom. We've been working with the ECB, helping them understand how they can get more children playing cricket. We've been working with Manchester City, helping them understand their fan base. Cartoon Network, we've been working with Mr. Bean. We've been working with a fantastic book brand called Warriors. And over that last year, we've spoken to over 30,000 children on a quant survey basis. We've spoken to over 150, nearly 200 children on a face-to-face qual basis. This is across 140. The quant research was across 140 countries. And we've also reviewed dozens, if not scores, of academic papers and research papers that look into fandom. So we've spent quite a lot of time kind of really immersing ourselves in what it means to be a fan and what it means for brands to have fans and what they can do with those fans. We know that fandom is very important for children. It's really about how they define themselves, and it's really about self-definition, and it's also about how they socialise. It's about the tools that they use to talk to their friends. It's the tools that they use to talk to their families, and it's also the tools that they use to form other friendships outside of those, form new and exciting friendships. So fandom for children is very important. You know, it's as I say, it's kind of a fundamental part of their lives, but also fandom for brands is very important as well. You know, your fans are your advocates. They're the ones that are out there sharing stuff. You know, 54% of fans say that sharing their passion is actually, something that they do for relaxation. So they love talking about you. And not only do they love talking about you, when they talk about you, they will sell you better than anybody else can, better than you can ever sell you. So really, they are your kind of prime advocates. They also give you longevity. They give you the benefit of the doubt. They're the ones that will stick with you through thick and thin. They're the ones that give you the benefit of the doubt. They're the ones that will stay with you after your dodgy second album, and they'll be there for kind of picking up you on your third album. So these are really important. They make sure that you can have consistent sales and they can predictable sales. So they're very important from a kind of a consistency standpoint. And then finally, they're the guys that bring you the money. The 80-20 rule, as old as it is, it's true. You know, they are the 20% of your audience that deliver 80% of your profits. In mobile gaming parlance, we have these things called whales. You know, these are the big fans that are really the guys that drive your revenue. And this is what these kind of hardcore fans are. So they are fundamentally important. They're fundamentally important to you as an IP owner, and they're also fundamentally important to themselves, what that means in the world of fandom. So we've created this thing called the fan profiling tool. And also in the spirit of openness, I've provided everybody here with the fan profiling tool. So if you so choose, you can do everything that we're about to say. You can do this for yourselves. So it's got everything you need to do to ask the right questions to help you understand your fan base and to help you build up your own profile of what your fan base looks like and what it means to you. If you don't really want to do that, if you turn over, you've got my contact details. You can call me. So the profiling tool is split into three key areas. Self-formation, so this is about that self-identity and using their fandom as a means of defining who they are. The second area is looking at interaction moments, and this is really the kind of functions of the fandom. It's the logistics of how they engage with you and how you engage with them. Then that third part is the social amplification, how they're using fandom to form friendships and how their friends are using fandom as a means of communication and tribalism in many respects. So we're going to look at the first bit. This is that self-formation part. This is the bit which is about understanding who I am, that self-identity, that self-development part of what we talked about, which is so fundamental. And really, if kids have got a roof over their head and they feel safe and secure and they've got a full stomach, 90% of what they're trying to do as a child is really understand who the hell am I. So really, a lot of children we see are using fandom as a means of being able to understand who they are, a means of forming their own self-development. whether it be through badging, literally physically putting the brand there that they love on their chest and kind of walking around and kind of being proud of it. And badging isn't just necessarily about that kind of feeling proud of it. It's also saying to the world, this is who I am. Judge me based on my fandom. Categorize me based on my fandom. You're using the identity of the brand in many respects to kind of come onto you, and using that as a means of saying this is who I am. Define me and understand me by the brands and by the fans that the things that I am a fan of. The second thing is friends. Birds of a feather stick together. You are defined by your friends. We do very much, again, the friends that we have is very much part of who we are and very much part of our self-definition. And we do see that kids can be friends with their fandoms. Kids feel like they want to be Taylor Swift's friend. They feel like they want to be Peppa Pig's friend. They feel like they want to be in Hogwarts and be friends with all the guys in Hogwarts. They're using friendship and they're using their fandom as a means of kind of friendship. And that's friends by not just saying, well, I want to be their friend, but what kind of person do I need to be for them to be my friend? So it's kind of, again, about that self-definition and understanding how their friendship might shape that. Burging, or basking in reflective glory. So this is that sense of, if you are a fan of a football club, you feel as elated, you feel as excited in their win as if it's a win for yourself. You're basking in their glory. So you kind of, again, you're beginning to define yourself by, wow, I'm a winner, because the thing I am a fan of is a winner. So you are basking in that reflective glory. And that doesn't have to be just a sports team or just a sports personality. It can be anything. Ed Sheeran fans were really pumped when he was playing on the pyramid scale stage at Glastonbury, because their guy was winning, their guy was out there, and so they felt excited. They were doing some basking in reflective glory as well. You see that if their TV shows are doing really well or they've won awards or whatever it may be, they're kind of getting that sense of like worth and self-esteem and self-confidence as a reflection of the brands and of their fandom. And then lastly, skill development. A lot of kids use their fandom to help grow themselves, to help improve themselves. In that gaming terminology and gaming parlance, there's this thing called flow, which is about getting that perfect balance between challenge and ability. That moment where you're just doing enough, but it's really still challenging you. And that's a really important part of a child's life, is to be in that moment of flow where they're just like, this is hard, but I'm progressing and I'm moving forward. My skills are developing. I'm getting better at stuff. And a lot of children will use their fandom of things to help them grow, to help them get better, to help challenge themselves. Whether that be a fan of a sport, but that can also be the fan of playing piano, as this kid is. Or it could be, I'm using Taylor Swift again. Maybe I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, and therefore I'm using her as a means to get better at dancing or to get better at singing. So all these things, we see that also in things like Lego. I'm using Lego to get better at that. So they like to see that progression. So the next part of fandom is the kind of slightly more functional element of fandom, and those moments of interaction points between your brand and you, and how you engage with your fans and how your fans engage with you. We've broken those down into 5. We've got emotional stimulation. It's that, how emotionally stimulating is it for you to engage with your brand? We've got here an example of Hunger Games, because that's a kind of quite an emotional storyline, but it could be anything. Don't just think of it as a narrative-driven emotional stimulation. It could be, for example, we know that kids who love Red Bull might love their Rampage videos online because they're just exciting, and it's not necessarily narrative-driven excitement. It's just raw energy and excitement. They might be fans of certain theme parks and roller coasters, again, because of that excitement. So don't necessarily just think of that emotional stimulation as part of a story. It could be any form of emotional stimulation that they get kind of a bit pumped about. The second bit is frequency. So how often do they engage with you? Do they engage with you once or twice, or do they engage with you quite a lot? And I'll kind of go into some of the interesting dynamics between emotional stimulation and frequency a little bit later on. Story. How much of the relationship is based around a story? How much are they using story as a means of kind of continuing their ongoing fandom? How much are they saying, well, I really want to know what happens next? I'm a fan of this story, I'm a fan of the emotional stimulation, but I really want to know what happens next. Product. If it's not a story, then how else can you engage with somebody? Well, via the means of a product, whether that be a plush toy, whether that be an iPhone product, whether that be a games console. So again, how are they interacting with you? Is it via story, or is it via a product, and physical interaction via a product? And then finally, participation. Are they engaging with you because through means that they want to? So the participation one is an interesting one, because what we look at here is how much can they engage in fandom in a way that suits them. Sometimes a lot of brands are quite happy to shut down participation and go, you know what, this isn't what we want. This isn't how we see participation with our brand. Therefore, we're going to try and stop it. And that's obviously a terrible thing to do. But a lot of brands do that. So what we're looking at here is how much can somebody interact with you and participate with you in a fan relationship in a way, in a means that suits them and suits what they want to do. So whether that be cosplay, whether that be role play, whether that be to make their own poster and kind of share that poster, kind of what is that opportunity to participate in that fandom. So then finally, the final part of this, the kind of the three-piece puzzle, is that social amplification. Children use fandom as a means to identify with their friends. You know, they start off by using it as a means to identify with the family and to bond with the family. And we've seen that in the research that came out of Ofcom, that there was a lot of co-family viewing, that they all like to get together and kind of watch the same thing together. So they were using the family. And interestingly, on all of these areas, well, less so community, but particularly on family and friends, the fandom can come from the community, and the fandom can also go into the community. And what I mean by that is it could be that somebody's a fan of something and they take that to their friendship group, and then all of their friends become fans. Or it could be that all of their friends are fans of something, and therefore that's the way it comes into them. So there's a real kind of reciprocal relationship between you as the fan and also these different social groups. And obviously how much you engage with these different social groups depends on how old you are. Again, we'll kind of go into that in a little bit of detail in a second. I think what we found when we've been doing this fan profiling is it's really nuanced. You've got to be quite careful and not kind of assume one thing. You know, so we saw that it's quite easy to go, oh, well, you know, obviously to create a good fandom, you need all your friends to like it and then you're done. You know, actually one of the kids there was like going, actually, it's not important at all because it's my opinion. So therefore it might be something else. It might be that it needs to be more emotional, and that's maybe needs to be the thing. So this is why we've kind of developed this fanship tool, because we worry sometimes that people oversimplify fandom and go, well, in the early stages they need this, and in the latter stages they need this. And, you know, as we've seen from what Jess was talking about, it's just sadly far more nuanced than that, and it's just not as easy. But hopefully with this tool we can make it a little bit easier and you can kind of see how it's done. So what I want to kind of talk through here is some of the examples of where we've used this tool and some of the ways in which you could use this tool with how you work. So this is a kind of classic example of something like a Sarah and Duck fan. So this is a young fan, kind of around 4, middleweight fan, kind of around 50%, something like that. And what we see here, for example, is we see that there's quite a low emotional engagement, there's quite a low story engagement, because they're, you know, anywhere between 2, 3, 4. They're not necessarily going to have these huge emotional relationships with Sarah and Duck. You're not going to have the romance, the love, the horror, the scare, the excitement, the death. You know, you're not going to have those big emotional moments. It's a bit calmer. You can't have those big moments. You know, and the stories are much, you know, there's not an ongoing story arc and an ongoing story narrative where you have to find out what happens next, and that's what's, you know, keeping your fandom going. So in those situations, quite interestingly, we see when those two are low, we have to rely on frequency, because we don't have those big emotional bombs, if you like. So, you know, we spoke to children who are big fans of BFG, but they don't read BFG every day. They read it every year, or they might engage with BFG through a film, maybe kind of more regularly, maybe every 6 months or 9 months. But those engagement moments are huge. They're big emotional moments. They're kind of big bombs, and they go off and they kind of arrested by it. And then that then takes a little while to then die back down again. And then they kind of re-explode that emotional stimulation again. So when that emotional stimulation is really high, you don't need that same level of frequency in order to kind of engage that fan, to kind of keep that fandom going. We also see with these preschoolers, obviously, that family is really important for preschoolers. You know, particularly around something like Sarah and Duck, it's a real kind of co-viewing opportunity. Parents love sitting down with their child and bonding over that moment of engaging in that fandom. And both of them are kind of fans together. We see Friend a little bit there. And we also see badging. And badging is kind of striped out, because we see this weird thing with preschool where you get a bit of badging by proxy. So what you might see is parents badging their child with Sarah and Duck for a couple of reasons. First of all, because they think their child would want to be branded with Sarah and Duck. They kind of, you know, children at this age, 2, 3, 4, they're not thinking about self-development. They're not wandering around going, you know, what kind of person do I want to be? You know, they're not they're much more just going with the flow, but the parents obviously are. So the parents will often brand their child and go, well, this is the brand that I think my child would want to be, or this is the brand that I hope my child would want to be. And also what you see, particularly with some brands like Sarah and Duck, which kind of have a really nice, kind of really family, cutesy kind of vibe to them, is that parents are branding themselves and kind of going, I'm the kind of parent who has a child that likes Sarah and Duck. So you kind of get this branding kind of by proxy, if you like. But what we do see with this fan profile is it's actually quite a fragile fan profile. When you compare this to some of the other fan profiles that we have a bit later, really there's only kind of 2 or 3 strands that are pulling this whole fandom on, which means it is quite fragile. If you lose the frequency, if you lose that family bond, ultimately you'll lose the fandom. So it's quite hard, and that's why we see with preschool, you have to keep up frequency. You have to, if you're not on every single day at the same time, you might lose that opportunity for that fan to engage. If you've not got product in their home where they're engaging with you on a daily basis, you might lose that fandom. So if you compare this to something like a Harry Potter, a kind of mid-weight to upper-weight Harry Potter fan, you can see that all of a sudden becomes a slightly more robust fan model. There are more of the beams from the sun are kind of longer. We're actually getting more different ways in which a fan is engaging with you and within which you are engaging with the fan. So we've seen badging start becoming a thing. Around 8 is where you're actually beginning to care and you're beginning to use your fandom as a means of communicating with your friends and seeing where you are in that hierarchy. We saw it with some of the fans earlier where they were kind of going, I've read all the books, you haven't read all the books, that makes me better than you. And they're actually using their fandom as a means of understanding where they sit within their group. We also see that emotional stimulation rise and that storyline rise, and which means that we can reduce that frequency. Again, these are kind of mid-weight fans, so they're not engaging every single day, but that when they do, they get that big emotional boost, and that enables them to carry on through. We're also seeing things like products starting to come more to the fore, and we're also seeing friends becoming more important. Actually, I just want to focus a little bit in on that kind of social angle just here. It's a relatively obvious thing, but if you then dial down the age and you kind of start talking about 6-year-old fans, then really a 6-year-old Harry Potter fan is probably going to be driven mainly by their family and everyone in the family engaging with it. And as they get older, we see that dynamic shift. We see all of a sudden, as you start getting up to more around 10, that's when that dynamic changes. And actually what's empowering and amplifying their fandom is no longer their family, although that's not gone away and that never does go away. But that kind of shifts all of a sudden to all of their friends are then, actually all of my friends are Harry Potter fans. So this is what's the thing that's really driving the engine in the social amplification. And then as you get older still, and as you start shooting up towards 14, a lot of the friends might have died away and they're kind of more interested in other things. And you're kind of, if you're still going, you need to look for other things. All of a sudden, if you haven't got that friendship, that close kind of friendship group, then you're looking at communities, you're looking at Reddit forums, you're looking at going to Leaky Cauldron, and you're looking at going to Pottermore, and you're looking at other ways in which you can engage with that fandom. So that kind of shifts as you get a little bit older. Kind of, again, that family never goes away. We saw, even when they're 17, they're still engaging with their family and helping them with their fandom. So back to the Harry Potter fan. So this is kind of what a medium weight one looks like. And then if we dial that back down again, look at what a light Harry Potter fan looks like. We're not saying that everything disappears. Light Harry Potter fans are still super excited by Harry Potter. They still have a great emotional stimulation. They still love the story, but they're not full-bore Harry Potter fans. They don't have the social amplification. They might not have any friends that are really into it. It's not part of their friendship group. They might not be able to engage with it. They might not be able to have that. They might not be badging themselves with it. So again, we see this kind of dial down. So not necessarily when you get to a smaller fan does everything shrink back down again. There might be a couple of strands that stay out there, but it's kind of what you need is that robust fan is the kind of all. So when we start going all the way back out again to kind of our big 90% fans, so these are our super hardcore, all of a sudden all the lines start growing out. But then we start entering a slight danger territory, because as you get into this territory, you end up with real exclusivity and you end up with over-tribalism. You end up with tribes within tribes. And again, we saw that with some of those fans where some of those kids were kind of going, yeah, but you're not a real fan, so you can't be a fan. So actually, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you're not one of the true fans. I'm going to talk to these guys over here because these are the true fans. And what we see is extreme fandom can actually be quite negative to a brand because it doesn't enable new fans to come in. So one of the really important things is if you don't control, you don't own that relationship with your fans, or at least you don't have the ability to be able to influence that fandom, what you find is that the fans go off and they become really cliquey and they don't let the new kids in. And you need those new kids, you need the newsbees, everybody needs the new fans in there. So it's really important that you don't let these guys, these guys are really important. I'm not dissing these guys at all. I'm just saying that what they can do is they can end up blocking the new fans from coming in. So you need to make sure that you're managing that very well, and you need to be aware when this is happening. You need to make sure that you're giving new fans the opportunity to be new fans without feeling like they're getting slapped down as being newbies, which you will often see. We then looked at sports fandom. Sports fandom obviously is very rife and very strong within kids. You know, we see the burging becoming particularly important. There's some amazing research out there that says that whichever was the winning baseball team when you were 8 means that you're twice as likely to support it. So whoever was winning when you were 8, they're the ones that you support. 8-year-olds love winning, and so therefore they want to be behind the team that loves winning. So therefore that's really important for that 8-year-old fan. And again, we kind of see everything growing out there. This isn't just family, this isn't just friends. They also have a sense of community as well, because they might go to a game or they might go with their dad to the pub to watch a game and see that kind of community and feel part of that. They will also see other people wearing the same T-shirts as them on TV and kind of go, oh, that's my tribe, I can see that. So that's why we have this very robust fandom that situates around sport. We looked at music. So someone like Taylor Swift, you know, what she works quite hard on is her story. You know, you don't get much kind of these big stories, or you do, but a lot of music artists, they really work on the story. Anyone who's watched an episode of X Factor realizes that 90% of it is just story. You know, they need something to believe in. They need a story to hook onto. They can't be a fan of this faceless thing. So when you look at someone like Taylor Swift, and then you move that over to someone like Pitbull, who again can be equally as successful in his chart positioning, all of a sudden we see that the dynamic of the fandom changes because he doesn't have a story. You don't want to be Pitbull's friend. I don't know, you know, I don't really know what Pitbull's like. He might be a lovely guy, but you know, I don't want to be his friend. I don't have that same relationship that I do with Taylor Swift, who works very hard on her stories. She works very hard to make herself accessible and friendly. We also looked at lifestyle and lifestyle brands. So something like iPhones, Xboxes, we had Nike, we had Ferrari, we had quite a few kind of lifestyle brands coming out from our 7 and 8-year-olds who really kind of like that lifestyle side of things. Quite interestingly, in that younger age, kind of 6, 7, 8, what we saw is that the lifestyle brands were driven quite by functionality. So they were big fans of iPhone because of what the iPhone enabled them to do. They were fans of Nike because they had a sweet pair of Nike trainers that made them run really fast or kick a ball really well in their mind. So their relationship at this age was really still quite functional. They weren't really using it as badging. It was part of that, but then as you shift up to more of a 14-year-old fan, a lot of the functional elements just slip away, and all of a sudden it's just all about badging. You know, why do you have an iPhone? Because everybody has an iPhone, because that's the coolest one, because I'm not going to be the guy without the iPhone. You know, or why do you have those trainers? Because, you know, it's nothing to do, they don't make me any faster, they don't make me any better, but everyone's got them, and therefore. So we see that kind of dynamic change and that dynamic shift. And that's one of the important things with using this model, is kind of understanding how your fans change over time, understanding how, as their fandom increases and decreases, how that model might change. But sadly, again, it's even not that easy again. You know, we looked at something like Disney. We also looked at someone like Lego. And you get different types of fans in your organization. So it's not as easy as saying, well, you know, we see a lot of our clients say, you know, oh, we're trying to reach an 8-year-old girl. You know, and go, well, what do you know about them? And they won't often look at it through the lens of fandom. They'll kind of go, well, they've got a media consumption of X, or they've got a media device penetration of Y, or this is how they engage with us or not. So someone like Disney, for example, we've got things like this, which is like the real life princess, and her model is very different, or his model is very different from the Pixar fan, you know, and that's very different from someone like a family bonder who engages with Disney because they all sit down on a Friday night and they all watch Disney together, and their profile is very different from a keen drawer who loves Disney because it enables them to draw and they want to mop and ape that style, and therefore it's about skill development. So we kind of see within an organization that you will have lots of different kind of images and lots of different shapes of that fandom. So it's not as simple as kind of going, this is one and this is another. You need to understand where those kind of buckets and where those different categories are. And again, Disney's one, Lego's another amazing one. There's just got so many different ways in which there are different shapes of fans and different sizes of fans. So in conclusion, being a fan is very important to a child. It's part of their self-development. It's part of understanding who they are. It's also how they engage with people. It's how they talk to their friends. It's the kind of medium within which they exist in a lot of their social interactions. We also know that fandom is essential for your property. It drives revenue, it drives longevity, it gives you the benefit of the doubt, it helps you with sustainability, it helps you with all those kind of revenue things that are fantastic. But and also, so what I would kind of leave you with is that I think everybody actually needs to think about their fan management strategy. First of all, again, do this, answer these questions, run this through your client base. Again, if you don't want to, talk to somebody else. But, understand who your clients are, understand the sort of clients that you want, the sort of fans, that you want. Understand this is where I'm trying to get to, this is the sort of fan base that I want. I don't just want that hardcore, I want to make sure I understand who that newbie is. And then start understanding how you can then shape those fan journeys. So as those fans come in, you can kind of understand, okay, this is where I want these guys to go and this is where I want these guys to go. Thank you very much.